I've got some exciting news. The WPT has given me a bunch of golden passports into their huge $5 million free roll that goes on December 13th at the Win. This is a live tournament and it is a free roll. Each seat's worth $2,500. All you have to do to qualify to get into the drawing where I'll be giving away some of these golden passports is go to ClubWPTGOLD.com, ClubWPTGOLD.com, and sign up using the code BART. More information about that in the description. So we got another Lodge live stream hand, and this is going to be a big one. This is Kenny from South Carolina. What's going on, Kenny?
Hey, Bart, what's up?
Kenny, am I allowed, if you don't want me to, I don't have to, but am I allowed to tell you the story of how we first met and what?
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
So I was playing Ultimate Texas Hold'em at the Cromwell this past summer, and this guy came up to me. Kenny had gone to, they were doing a Grateful Dead show at the Eye. And he said, right, that's what it's called, right? What is the
Sphere.
The Sphere, excuse me, the Sphere. And Kenny was tripping his balls off, right? You had said that you had eaten so many mushrooms. What was it, like a half ounce of mushrooms that night or something like that? And you were very concerned, very, very concerned, like I get like with psychedelics, that you might have come off. It's like the next day I saw him again. I saw Kenny again. He's like, I didn't say anything like that was weird or anything like that. I said, no, you were actually quite in control, Kenny. Right. But we had a great time, played several sessions, Kenny and his buddy from South Carolina at the Cromwell. Highly recommend it with the UTH game. But really, really good times. I don't know, we put 5 or 6 sessions in there. And I talked about it with my subscribers too, how profitable the game was. But most of the time, Kenny plays in home games, right, in South Carolina. Is that right?
Yeah, lots of private games. I'll take a trip about once a month and get around high stakes tournament series. But for the bulk of it, yeah, private games.
So Kenny was playing at the Lodge in the huge game, right? Like the Lodge live stream. And the guy that is going to be your villain, so they put him up as like T-1000 because he looks a little bit like what the actor that played like the Terminator in Terminator 2. I think that's what they named him. But do you know the guy's actual name?
JC.
JC, right, JC. So I got into some epic battles with JC when I lived in Texas. I played some huge pots against JC at TCH and also on the Lodge live stream. And I think that we'll definitely probably cut the video in for this one. But why don't you tell us the size of the game here and how deep you guys are?
All right, yeah. So we're playing 25-50 with $100 straddle, and I would say about 25% of the time we had the double straddle going. So pretty juicy game. We're on hand 155 when this one comes around, and I had run up a good little bit of profit. I was leading the game, chip leader, and with all that, and then I ran right into this spot that had me shooken because I'm not typically playing games that are going to be 10,000 big blinds deep and things like that. And I found myself in a 4-bet spot that just kind of got away from me.
How deep were you guys to start the hand?
I was sitting on 74,000 to start the hand. And T1000 had around, I think, 56,000.
Now it's interesting. So JC T1000, I don't know if he's been playing in these big games. I mean, I haven't really paid attention to watching those live streams in Texas, but I mean, when I was playing with him, we were playing normal stakes, normal of like, yeah, we might have like 8,000 in front of us, but I had never seen him play this big. I don't know if that's a normal thing. I mean, he's a guy that I don't think he's a professional. I mean, he's a recreational player, but definitely isn't probably better. I would characterize him as better than the average recreational player. And now I hope it doesn't come. I don't think he's a professional. I think he's got money from other sources from what I remember. And so definitely one of the better ones from that. And obviously, the money, he's definitely capable, which can, put you in some tough spots. So 56,000 effective.
Yep. So we get right into it. I'm on the button. He's in the double straddle. Okay, and I look down at pocket kings. I have king of hearts, king of clubs, and I open to 700 from the button.
Hero with king of hearts, king of clubs opens to 700 on the button in this at 56,000 effective. So you're just going to like 3.5x, 25, 50, 100, 200, right?
Yes, that's
Okay.
right. Yep.
Yep. Okay.
Folds around to him, and he puts in a 3-bet to 2,800. So he's going to 4x that from the double straddle.
Now, what's interesting here is that, and obviously these games are pretty splashy, right? This is on the Lodge live stream, pretty splashy. And this guy's pretty aggressive from what I remember. Like I said, I mean, I haven't seen him play for a while, but he's definitely pretty aggressive. It's just always interesting because he's closing the action, right? He's closing the action in the double straddle. So a lot of times you can kind of call with some in-between hands. So, when somebody comes out swinging with a 3-bet from that last position pre-flop, it can tend to be a little polarizing where, because he can call with a lot of middling types of hands, it can a lot of times be like very strong or very weak. Now, you're opening from the button, so it's not as much of a consideration because you're sort of, doing a late position open. How would you have been playing? Like, did you know what your VPIP stats were for the night? Were you playing overly loose or like in the middle or anything like that?
Yes, I was on the metric chart there. I was in the loose aggressive play style. My VPIP was 42%.
Oh,
We
okay.
had been very active. I didn't see like the 3-bet or 4-bet percentage in this and that, but the 3-bet percentage had to have been somewhere around 9 to 12%. 4-bet sneaking in maybe around 4%. We were actively 4-betting and 3-betting all day. And this was about 5 hours into the stream. So that did come into play for sure during this hand.
Well, I would 4-bet here all day.
Yeah.
Is that what you did?
As far as what he might be putting me on as far as my 4-bet range, because I had showed 2 4-bet bluff pre-flop with ace 4 offsuit and ace 5 offsuit prior to this start of this hand.
Right. I mean, at 25, 50, 100, 200, I mean, you're like just under 300 big blinds. This is where it kind of gets weird, right? I mean, you just, it's easy for me to say, right? But I can't, if you're going to 4-bet, you're going to 4-bet, call it off. I mean, kings is way too good to ever think about, I think, folding in, if you, in this spot with that background, it's just this sort of a stakes type of thing. So I assume you did 4-bet, right?
Yes, I did 4-bet. I made it 9,300.
So you went to 9,300. So more than sort of like 3x. And then, yeah, I mean, at this stack depth, if you're trying to get like a lot of money in and you think that he might call with some of these in-between hands, I have no problem with it. I mean, a lot of people like to like 4-bet, kind of smaller than that, but you're so deep, you still can. I mean, it's not like you guys are so deep that it's not like you've broken some sort of pre-flop threshold where now you make it so large that the guy's never going to have a 5-bet. You guys have enough stack depth, so I have no issue with it at all. So you go to 9,300, okay?
9,300, and he calls, and we're off to a flop of ace of spades, ace of clubs, jack of diamonds.
Ace of spades, ace of clubs, jack of diamonds. Again, 9,300 in the call makes the pot probably like something like, I want to say like 18.8K. And he just called kind of quickly to your 4-bet?
Relatively. He didn't seem to be pondering a 5-bet.
Okay. So ace of spades, ace of clubs, jack of diamonds, right? Is that right? Ace of spades, ace of clubs, jack of diamonds?
Yep.
So
that's it. And yes, the pot was 18.8.
Yeah, 18.8. Obviously, you never want to see an ace here, right? You know what I'm saying? You never want to see an ace when
in the window. Kings. Right in the window.
But it's 2 aces though, right? It's 2 aces. And one of the things that I would think about, because I did watch this hand here, Kenny, and it's interesting when we think about how people structure certain situations, is one of the things that jumps out at me, why I don't think this is a terrible flop for you. I mean, obviously you can be beaten here, but let's say that he does just flat here with ace king, you block ace king because you've got 2 of the kings in your hand. And then sure, he can have some ace queen that might be played like this. I mean, 2 of the aces come out. And then as we'll see, as we get, more and more into this, there's obviously less combos of ace jack. So we'll see how this one develops. 18.8K. I mean, this is probably a better flop than if it was like ace jack 5 for you, right? Ace jack.
For sure. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Okay. So I assume he checks.
Yes, he checks. And in these 4-bet spots, my c-bet is almost 100%. I actually decided to check back as like trying to blend in some trappiness. Um, like I said, I was a little out of my league in this spot specifically due to the stack depths, lack of experience in these spots. I felt confident on the flop. I wasn't checking back like, oh, here's the ace. I was checking back to kind of control it a little bit, and maybe induce a bluff lead on later streets.
Well, let me ask you this question. Does that mean that you would check? So when I think about what your 4-bet range here is, okay, I would think that maybe your 4-bet range, you can correct me if I'm wrong here, that comprises of ace X might be ace king in this situation, maybe some ace queen suited, or maybe some ace queen suited, and maybe some of what you talked about before, the ace X, ace little bluffing types of hands. So
Yes, yep,
if
and you nailed it. That's exactly it.
if you had some of those aces, like say you had the ace 4, ace 3, something like that, would you have checked back the flop some of the time here?
Yes, some of the time, but again, it's leaning more towards like 80-20 for percentages on my check back. Just being in 4-bet pots, I like to usually just be firing.
Well, you're supposed to pretty much, you're supposed to be doing a lot of small c-bet sizing, right, in 4-bet pots.
Right. Yeah.
Maybe not even on the type of texture type of thing. Now, in terms of like your hand here, your hand doesn't really need much of protection. I'm just trying to sort of drill into like where one might be a little bit balanced or unbalanced. But if you could sometimes throw in some checkbacks with some of the weaker ace portion, then it's not inherently unbalanced to have some checkbacks here. So you decide to check. The only thing I would say though is that if you do this, remember the guy that you're playing against and what you're trying to set up, right? Like you're gonna have to hold on quite a bit, right?
Yes.
So you check behind. So the pot remains 18.8K. Okay.
Yeah, and one little tidbit too is that I had planned on working in, when I decided to check, I did plan on working in a delayed c-bet. But here comes the turn, jack of spades, and it just made it really awkward for me. I was very uncomfortable.
So the turn is the jack of spades. So the board is ace of spades, ace of clubs, jack of diamonds. The turn here is the jack of spades. So now you also lose to a jack, but there's a big caveat here though, because this is really like combo types of work here. When you think about what we talked about, how we might sort of comprise a 3-bet out of the straddle versus like a button open and then sort of call a 4-bet like pretty quickly, you block king jack because you've got 2 of the kings in your hand. Let's say, for example, he only has king jack suited here. You have the king of hearts and the king of clubs. The jack of diamonds and the jack of spades are out there. So there is no more king jack suited that's available, okay? Ace jack is on the board. So there aren't many combos of ace jack here either. Is there a combo of ace jack suited here that's maybe it looks like an ace jack of hearts, maybe like a 1 combo type of thing? And then you have maybe like, I guess, queen jack suited and maybe like jack 10 suited if those are 3-bet and then just sort of snap called off as a 4-bet. So from sort of what I'm looking at here, yes, you lose to a jack, but kind of like what's on the board and what's in your hand blocks a lot of that jack. So I wouldn't be all that concerned. And the other thing you got to think about though too is that if this hand goes in a direction of, he all of a sudden bets and you call, he's got to be concerned that you have an ace here too. So a jack doesn't just necessarily get to go buck wild. So it is another hand that you lose to, but it's not quite as concerning as one might think is sort of my gut reaction here. Now, does he check the turn here?
Yes, he checked. And as far as the turn dynamic goes, the combos of jacks that I was thinking about, the only one that I was worried about was jack. I'm thinking this 3-bet call 4-bet.
Right.
Like, am I running into quads here?
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, that could be. But that's just one combo. Sure. I mean, yes, he could absolutely have jack for sure. If he has jack here, and so I guess my point, so if he had jack, is this like always an auto check here? And the reason why I'm saying this is if I had jack and I was in his spot and you checked back flop, I kind of think like I don't want you to just sort of check behind with like queen or king So maybe I start a small bet if I had quads here. Like at some point, you're probably going to either raise or put some money in here with an ace. So, I mean, I suppose you could go for a check raise with Jack Jack here too, I guess. I mean, I guess you could go for a check raise. I'm just trying to think about like, how often are you arriving here with ace X, and am I trying to get thin value here from king, king, and queen, queen if I had quad jacks in his spot? So, if he checks here on the straddle, I wonder, there's got to be some frequency that he bets out here with Jack Jack. Now, when he checks, now for you obviously have a playing pair in your hand. Is there any, at this point, do you just play this as a check back and then just sort of, plan on calling? Like, what are you trying to get called by here? The only thing that really plays that's worse than your hand is queens, right?
Right. Yeah. As far as targeting value,
Yeah.
and all that stuff was going through my head on the turn, and it just I think I started panicking a little bit on the turn. I'm like, in my mind, I'm just like, let's get to showdown. I don't know what the hell's going on here.
So you check behind, and the pot remains 18.8K. Okay. And now?
Yep. So and then we check turn, and the river comes out 3 of spades, which completes a backdoor flush draw, which is pretty insignificant in this spot as far as suits come into play.
Well, I mean, the only thing, I mean, in a 4-bet pot, it seems to be fairly insignificant here. Like for him to have a suited hand here, like a king, queen of spades, king 10 of spades, something like that. And then, but he'd have to be basically targeting you, having king, king or queen, queen. It's interesting that, the way that this one goes down, if he ever ended up with a backdoor flush here, and there's really not that many combos as played, can this be value bet from up front? It's very, very thin. It's not something that you necessarily have to worry about. And then when if he sizes any type of crazy amount, that you can just throw that out, right? Because you've got enough ace stuff that you might have checked back. So I don't remember what the sizing comes, but it's just one of these things. Like if he bets 6,000 here, you might get shown down like a flush some of the time, something like that. But what ends up happening here?
So on the river, he tanks for a bit. I can see it. I can see the wheels turning. And he flicks out an orange 25,000 chip for an overbet lead river.
Of how much? So he bet 25,000 on the river?
Yep.
So straddle bets 25K on the river. So the pot is going to be 43.8, 25 for you to call. Now, one of the first things that I look at, like in any situation here, is a certain type of, looking at the board and trying to figure out, like, are there hands that say he overvalues? Like, is there ever a hand here that he bets that's worse than yours for value? I think that's a clear cut no. Nobody's going to overbet queen here, right? And then are there hands that he has to turn into a bluff? What's interesting here is that because the board is ace, ace, jack, jack, if for some reason he had like 10s, 9s, something like that, those hands don't play. Now you block him having like the kind of the nut no pair, like in the form of like king, king here. And we don't think he's ever betting here like queen, queen. So there could be some hands, or just like whatever he has, like some sort of air. Let's say he was getting frisky and he called. You seem to think that he's probably much tighter than, what I think. Like if he ever had like 7-6 suited here or something like that, he's just making like a Hail Mary bluff here at the end. But smaller pairs and anything that's just air might feel like it needs to bluff. And if you thought that maybe you were giving something away by maybe the pacing of your sort of check behind, there's that. And then the other question though too is that as played, so when he bet 25,000, did you think that he could be taking Jack X here for this type of line and sizing?
Nope. Again, going back to those jack combos, the only one that I would consider was Jack Jack. Targeting
Jack Jack.
Check back, targeting an ace that might have checked back twice.
You don't think that he can take like Jack 10 suited or Queen Jack suited here, or you just don't think he 3-bet calls pre? with that hand?
I don't think. No, I think I give him credit for holding that. I don't give him credit for sticking out the overbet with that.
Just because you think you have some ace X that might have checked back twice?
Right, because going back to the four bet ranges that I had been showing up with prior in the stream, he's got to at least consider that I could have getting tricky with ace anything. I was four betting a lot of naked aces, even unsuited.
Well,
So I was thinking what he was thinking,
right, and
kind of
that's a
swap.
valid thought, Kenny. I mean, if you had been showing down a lot of like ace X types of bluffs, you might actually have way more ace X than what might be normal in a spot like this, which the counter for that would be that he's not allowed to take a jack X so thin. In a normal type of situation, though, if I held a jack here somehow, and again, we talk about he can't really have king jack suited because we block all that. And then the ace, and obviously he can have ace jack here, but there aren't many combos of that. There aren't many combos of that. But I'm just talking about the jack X portion, like queen jack suited or jack 10 suited. In a normal type of situation here, if my opponent on the button went check, check, went check, check, I think I value bet a jack here. And I think I'm trying to target kings or queens specifically.
Yes, like you said, in a normal game,
Yeah.
that would definitely come into consideration. But as it stands and as the game had played prior to this hand, I kind of just removed that. I mean, it crossed my mind, but it wasn't like
Okay.
I wasn't
So,
drilling on what type of jack
right,
value
right.
over bet lead he's taking here, other than quads.
So let's say that he doesn't have a jack boat. Okay, so he can have quad jacks, right? We know that. But let's say we agree with you that he doesn't have jack X here, right? So you're losing to ace X, right? You're losing to ace X, right? So again, here, the fact that you have two kings in your hand is obviously blocking the hand that always continues pre-flop here. Now you might say that some like ace king suited, and again, we can look back. A lot of times people don't like look at this extra information like at the heat of the moment. It's like, oh my God, like I'm facing a $25,000 bet here. Kenny's got the king of hearts and the king of clubs, the ace of spades, and the ace of clubs are out there. So it looks like there would be one specific combo of ace king suited, which would be ace king of diamonds. I'm just talking through if he were to say like 5-bet all that, but you guys are so deep, he might just call with that here too. But ace king is a hand that's always going to continue to this pre-flop action, whether it's another bet or a call. The fact that you've got two kings here really blocks that well, right?
Yes.
We talked about how ace jack, it's all up on the board, so there's less combos of that. So then you get into like ace queen. Sure, there's two aces out there, so there's 8 combos of ace queen. If he, calls the 4-bet, which he might. I mean, 3-bet ace queen off, and then Kenny, who's been showing me ace 4 off. I mean, I might call with ace queen. So there might be 8 combos of ace queen here that might be played this way. And then I don't know if he's got like ace 10 suiteds and all the other low aces, but you could certainly count a bunch of aces here. Maybe 10 combos, maybe even more than that, maybe like 12 combos. Then you've got to throw in the jack-jack combo. So that's another one. So let's just say 12 to make it even. Kenny's not getting 2-1 here because it's a pot-sized bet. So he'd have to find, if he's got 12 combos of value, he's probably going to need to find with these pot odds like 8-ish bluffs. If it was a pot-sized bet, he'd need to find what, 6-ish bluffs here, right? For that 2-1 value to bluff ratio. But here you need to find 8. If he's got 12 combos of ace X, you need to find 8 bluffs. Now, 9, 9, and 10, 10 are 6 each. That's 12. And then maybe some airball types of stuff like pure air. But that's how the math would go out. It's very interesting, the properties of your hand. I think this is a much, much more of a call with king, king than it is with queen, queen. And that's because you are blocking half of all the ace king combos that always get here pre-flop like this. So you have the much better combo to call with, I think, with king, king versus having queen, queen. I mean, the thing that I would go back here to, though, Kenny, is that like it's a live stream and I know the guy's capable and you've sort of shown weakness down. You know what I mean? Like we just did the math, but I'm just boiling it down to guts here as a second part.
Yeah, for sure. And I like it. And the one thing to put in there is that I actually removed the ace king not completely, but I wasn't giving him as much credit for it because as the game was playing, I'm pretty sure a 5-bet would have been coming in
If he what? I'm
pre-flop
sorry.
if he had ace king.
Right.
Yeah. So
Well,
because of that, I ended up giving him a lot of credit for ace queen suited hearts.
ace queen. No. Well, I mean, there's only one combo of ace queen, right? I mean, I think that it would just really surprise me given that setup that he doesn't show up with all the ace queens here. I mean, he 3-bet ace queen off against a button and then you 4-bet, you've shown some garbage. I just think that that's a square call. And that's still like 8 combos of value types of hands. And then, like I said, we can go down in the weeds in terms of like how many ace X does he have? Does he have like, I don't know if ace 10 off, no, but like ace 10 suited, does he, people are saying like, oh, what about all the other ace X suited? Really, is he 3-betting like ace 7 suited and then calling like a 4-bet here? Again, it's a guts type of thing. It's probably pretty close. I like holding king, and you kind of played it this way and you check back turn. So let me go so far as to say, to wrap this one up, Kenny, like you keep saying that you're not concerned about Jack X. Is it possible that that might have gone through you? Now you're saying you're not concerned about an underboat, not quad jacks, but just the Jack X. But is it possible at the time that that might have come into consideration with your decision if you do decide to release that you're like, well, I don't beat Jack X here either?
It did cross my mind, but it was so in these kind of spots, I'm not getting quite in depth with exactly how many combos
I got you.
the same way you were.
Right,
So
right.
I've really given credit for like 3 holdings here. And I actually in the stream I asked him before I folded, I said, is it ace queen or 10-10? So in these spots I'm giving him Jack, ace queen, or 10-10. I'm giving him 3 and I'm losing to 2 of those 3. So that was kind of where my mind was at on the river evaluation.
Well, you're losing to 2 of the 3, but just to go the extra step though with the math is that you look at the actual number of those hands that are available. So there's 6 pocket 10s, right? There's 8 ace queens because there's 2 aces on the board, and then there's 1 Jack. So you've got 9 ace queen and quad jacks, and then you've got 6 10-10s. So at that ratio of him having value at 1.5 to 1, then you get into a situation where this could be a call, but it's really right at 1.5 to. Am I doing that right? I
Yeah,
confused. Yeah, 1.5
2.
to 1. Yeah. But it's really, really close, right? It's really, really close. Like if he had bet 2x the pot, then you're at break even at 1.5 to 1, right? So what ended up happening, Kenny? What did you do?
I ended up folding. I gave him credit.
What was the reveal?
I folded and he didn't show. And then as soon as the stream ended, I went back out to my car and I called Ryan, who you had met over the summer.
Ryan,
and I said,
right?
What? Yeah, I said, what did he have? And he said 9s.
Oh,
said,
no.
Yeah.
So there was another pair in there that you didn't necessarily give him credit for, which is another 6 combos too. Right?
Yep.
Yeah. So, that's how that changes things. But wow. Yeah, that's, it is one. I've been in that spot before too, Kenny, where it's like, you kind of like get this big hand and then, you see the ace on the board and then it just looks to progressively get worse and worse. You're going to play some pot control. And then at the end, you're up against this guy that just puts you to the test and maybe you get just a little bit, maybe at some point you get a little bit lost, but I've been there before for sure. It's not.
Yes, and that's how I felt. And the frustrating part with it is that a lot of my checking back was like thinking, oh, I'm going to check back and get this guy to bluff.
Mm-hmm.
After the turn came, that's when I got lost in the hand.
Right.
I had full intentions of getting to showdown until the turn comes.
And that's why I said, like, that's why I think it's like on paper, it looks like, oh God, it's another hand I lose to. But then when we look back at it, it's like, unless it's quad jacks, there's just not that much. That's why I think this one's really interesting with the combinations of you holding king with the ace and the jack out there. That's why I said, like, you might now looking after the fact, it's like, yeah, I'm not really concerned about a jack, but in game, it's like, oh God, it's another hand I lose to, right? That I wasn't planning on it.
Right.
Yeah. Well,
and not to mention that this at the time was the biggest pot that I have ever been involved in. So there was definitely some like inexperience and fear factor going on to some degree.
Well, I appreciate you. I appreciate you calling it in, Kenny. It was nice to meet you, and Ryan, and hope to see you guys over the summer. I had a blast. You guys made it real fun for me over the summer.
Awesome. Likewise. We had a blast.
All right. Thank you, Ryan. Thank you very much.